Disclaimer. This is an audiobook recording performed for entertainment purposes through fair use. I do not claim any of the texts being read to be mine or written by me. This is Memoirs of a Teenage Amnesiac by Gabrielle Zevin. 2. By Monday morning, the doctors had determined that I couldn't remember anything past 6th grade, which I'd pretty much known since the first conversation with Dad, and they sent me home. No one knew anything, really. It was a bona fide medical mystery. In their genius opinion, the head trauma wasn't severe enough to have caused the kind of amnesia I had, so they thought that I was probably repressing or some crap. Call me crazy, but I'm pretty sure it was the fall down the stairs. They said my memory might come back or it might not. In any case, we should all act like it wasn't going to. There wasn't anything to be done anyway. In a couple of weeks, there would be more pictures of my brain that probably wouldn't show anything. Therapy, maybe. Rest, they said. And then, resume normal life as much as possible, they said. Go back to school when you're ready. Maybe it'll help you remember, they said. But then again, maybe it won't. The human brain is mysterious, they said. Good luck to you, they said, handing me a sample-sized bottle of Excedrin and an excuse note for gym, and Dad a bill as thick as the National Geographic. I scanned the hospital parking lot for our car, which, in my last recollection, had been a silver SUV, Mom's, or a red truck, Dad's. I didn't see either. Dad, you think it's a bad sign I don't know which car is ours? I don't believe it's a bad sign, Dad said, pointing to the compact white vehicle that was wedged between two other compact white vehicles. You're joking. You love that truck. Dad muttered something about the new one being more fuel efficient. It's covered in the memoir, he added. It was, though I wouldn't find it for many months. He wrote about the truck on page 98 of his book. He claimed to have sold it because it reminded him of Mom. He didn't mention anything about fuel efficiency. It's funny how Dad was more honest in a book that anyone in the world could pick up and read than he could be talking to me. Or maybe it was just sad. One or the other. Sometimes it's hard to tell. I got into the passenger seat and put on my seatbelt. Just as we were pulling away, Dad's cell phone rang, and he asked me did I mind if he took it. I said I was fine. After the doctor's near constant interrogation, I appreciated not talking. Hello? Yes. Me too. I've been meaning to tell you, Dad said stiffly to someone. He seemed embarrassed to be talking in front of me. Who is it? I whispered. No one. Work. He mouthed to me. He rolled his eyes and slipped on his headset. I decided I'd misread his tone and turned my concentration to the outside view. The trees were still green, but you could feel that summer was over. It made me think of a day I could remember, and how it had definitely been summer then. I didn't necessarily remember the trees, but I remembered the air that day. It had a fresh-cut lawn smell, where it feels like all of nature is sighing with relief. My parents and I had left for Iceland about a week later. I wonder if Mom was having an affair even then. She must have been. When she said she had a daughter, she was already 3. My mom's daughter, my sister. I couldn't think about that. Out the car window, Terrytown looked familiar enough. I noticed a new subdivision of houses and a new McDonald's. The place where they used to sell apple cider and donuts had been torn down, but basically nothing much had changed, and this was reassuring. All of a sudden, Dad turned onto a street I didn't recognize. Even though Dad was still on the phone, I asked him where we were going. Dad hung up before answering. We moved, he said simply. I should have mentioned it before, but there were so many things. I'll add it to the list when we get home. We're almost there. The list was turning out to be a complete waste. Dad informed me that they had sold our house after the divorce. He had bought a different house about a half-mile from our old one. He mentioned that the new house was larger. Why we needed a larger house with fewer people living in it was beyond me. And closer to school. And besides, we haven't lived all that long in the other house anyway. Not like Brooklyn. The new house was much more modern than the old house had been. The back wall looked like it had been made entirely from glass, and it was incredibly drafty inside. Our old house had been 2 stories with all these strangely shaped rooms and narrow flights of stairs. I think it had been built in 1803 or something. The new house was, well, new. It was all one level and seemed more, I guess you might say, organized, if you were being kind. Sterile, if you weren't. There were a few artifacts from the old house, but not many. At a glance, I recognized a clay planter in front of the fireplace, a small braided rug near the laundry room, and a cast iron umbrella stand. They all looked awkward and out of place, like orphans. "What do you think?" Dad smiled. I could tell he was proud of his house. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, so I told him it was nice. Truly, there wasn't much to say. It was all very beige. The sofa was beige, the stain on the wood floor was beige, the walls were beige. What in the world could you say about beige? To Mom, any reasonable flat surface or bare surface was a potential canvas, and she'd always been painting or changing the colors of our walls. Our house smelled like paint all the time, but also all of our other projects. Like melted crayons and clay and weird incense and glue and newsprint. Like people lived there and things were happening there. Like home. This new house smelled like synthetic citrus. "Dad, what's that weird orange scent?" "Just something the housekeeper uses. I didn't like it at first, but now I'm kind of getting used to it." "It's organic," Dad sighed, and then he clapped his hands together. "Okay, I assume you'll be wanting an official grand tour." "Could we do it after lunch, maybe?" I told Dad I was really tired, and he led me down the hall to my room. "Look familiar at all?" he asked. Like the rest of the house, my room did share some similarities with the bedroom I remembered. The furniture, for one, was exactly the same. I practically wanted to hug my wicker dresser or, give the desk chair a massage. I told my dad I wanted to be alone. He had just been standing there, and I sensed he needed to be told to leave. Dad nodded and said he had some work to do, but that his office was down the hall if I wanted him. "Oh, hey, you'll need this," Dad called as he was about to go. He took the list out of his pocket. It was on 5 sheets of paper and 168 items. "It was lonesome here without you, kid," he said. He kissed me on the forehead to the right of my injuries. I closed the door behind him, and then I went to sleep. Dad woke me up for lunch and again for dinner, but the meals made no impression. I didn't really wake until around 8 that night. I was alone for the first time in what felt like years. It had really been almost no time at all. At the hospital, I had basically avoided all mirrors. It was easy. I just slipped past them, holding my breath as if there were a ghost in the room. Partially, I think it's because I didn't want to see my injuries. It probably sounded like vanity, but it wasn't. In my opinion, wounds are like water set to boil. They heal best if left unwatched. But every now and again, I would accidentally catch a glimpse of myself. In a glass on my food tray, in the lens of a doctor's spectacles, in the window at night, just before the lights are turned out. For a moment, I would not even recognize who I was looking at, and, instinctively, I would turn away. It was rude to stare at a stranger, and that's what I felt like to myself. I did not know the girl in the glass, nor did she know me. Now that I was finally alone, I felt braver. I decided that it was time to reacquaint myself with myself. The meeting wouldn't be off any longer. The first thing I did was remove all of my clothes and examine my body in the mirrored closet door. It was what I had been expecting. Even though I had lost 4 years of memory, I never actually thought that I was 12. I'm not saying it's like this for other people, but that's how it was for me. I instinctively knew I was older, and although my body was surprising in certain ways, it looked more or less how I felt on the inside, so it was okay. My face was a bit more shocking, and not because of my injuries either. Will's description had been accurate on front, and the whole mess had already changed colors, which I interpreted as healing. My face was strange because it looked like someone I knew. A cousin, maybe, but not mine. My hair was about the same length, halfway down my back, but it might have been lightened. Highlighted? I wasn't sure. My jaw was narrower, my nose sharper. "Hello," I greeted myself. "I'm Naomi." The girl in the mirror didn't seem convinced. "Anything you have to say for yourself?" I asked. She stared at me blankly and said nothing. I decided that mirrors were completely useless. I found a t-shirt in my bureau and put it on. I opened the closet door. The person who lived in this room, for I could not quite think of her as me yet, was incredibly organized. It was as if she had been preparing for just such an occasion. I looked at all my clothes, several school uniforms, dark gray wool kilt, white dress shirt, maroon tie, various hoodies, and V-neck sweaters, gym clothes, tennis whites, all of it neatly pressed, folded, or hung. In a zipped garment bag was a black velvet dress for a formal event I couldn't imagine having attended. I decided to put it on just to see what it looked like. The dress was a little tight around my breasts. Evidently, I had grown since I had last worn it. I didn't bother zipping it up all the way. I ran my hands along my hips. The fabric was silky and plush. I wonder if I'd worn my hair up or down. I wonder if I had liked how I looked on that night, and what my date had thought of me. If he had said that I was the most beautiful girl in the world. I wonder who my date had been, and if it had been that ace guy or someone else. I wonder if I'd really liked the person, or if I'd just gone with somebody to go with. I wonder if he'd brought me a corsage, or if he had, even been kind to me. Had he known that I don't like roses? Had he bought roses? Had I had to pretend I liked them so I wouldn't hurt his feelings? Maybe I hadn't gone with a boy at all? Maybe I'd gone with a group of girls, or a group of friends. God, did I even have a group of friends? Maybe I'd worn the dress somewhere else entirely, I wondered. On the bookshelf under my window were 4 school yearbooks, one for each year beginning in 7th grade. I flipped through the books, but they didn't really tell me much. Teams competed in sports. Sometimes they won, other times they lost. Some kids joined clubs and others didn't. Some got taller, some got smarter. A few got dumber, and either way, most managed to graduate. All yearbooks told me the same story anyway. I read through every single signature of every single one. "Have a great summer. Don't forget me. Keep in touch." I wonder why anyone was bothering signing at all. The only interesting signature was Will's, and it wasn't even really a signature. On the inside back cover of both my 9th and 10th grade books, he had drawn a very clear box around the perimeter. Above both boxes were the words, "This page is reserved for William B. Landsman to do with what he will." He hadn't yet used it. I wondered. When I looked in my index of most of my yearbooks, 10th grade, under my name, I found only 3 mentions. The first was my class photo. That year, my hair looked very light on the top, maybe blonde, although I couldn't really tell. All the underclassmen portraits were in black and white, so when I say my hair was blonde, really what I meant is it looked like gray. The second was varsity tennis team photo. I wasn't even pictured in that one, though. It just had my name captioned, "Not pictured." I wondered what I had been doing instead. Third mention was on the yearbook masthead. I had been photo editor, which might explain why I wasn't in any of the pictures. It had always been the same with Mom, both in the Wandering Porter books and in our family albums. Because she was the photographer, she was never in the photos. And whenever anyone tried to take her picture, she would get really uncomfortable. I put the yearbooks back on the shelf. Maybe I was like my mother, the girl behind the camera. I wondered. I went through the drawers on my nightstand. The most interesting thing I found was a plastic compact containing birth control pills, which meant I was either A, having sex with someone, or B, on the pill for some other reason. The second most interesting thing found was a leather diary. This might beat the birth control pills for the official title of most interesting thing in Naomi's nightstand, had it not been a food diary detailing every single thing I'd eaten for the last 6 months. Sample entry. August 4th. 1 bagel with cream cheese, 350 calories. 18 mini pretzels, 150 calories. 2 Diet Cokes, 0 calories. 1 banana, 90 calories. 7 Reese's Pieces, 68 calories. Grand total, 618 calories. Smiley face. Every entry after that was the same. Page after page of it. Sometimes there would be a frowny face if I thought I had eaten too much that day, or a neutral face if I was neither here nor there about my eating for the day. It went all the way up until the day of my head injury. I tried to toss the useless artifact in the trash, but I missed. I felt disgusted. I mean, really, what kind of person keeps a food diary? I wondered if former Naomi Porter had been, in all likelihood, a complete and total jerk. Somebody I probably wouldn't have wanted to know. I wondered. I went through my backpack. I suppose I could have done this at the hospital, but I never had. I looked at my driver's license. It had been issued 9 months prior on my 16th birthday. I was wearing my school uniform, and in the picture I was smiling so big you could see that I still had braces. I ran my tongue over my teeth. Smooth, no metal. Orthodontia, one thing I could be glad to have forgotten. As I returned my license to my backpack, I wondered if I still knew how to drive. Also in my bag was my cell phone, which was dead, so I plugged it into the charger and turned it on. I wanted to call someone, but I didn't know who, so I started scrolling through the numbers in the address book. I didn't recognize about half the names. I thought about calling Will. Maybe he would know about the birth control pills, but decided against it. Even if he was my best friend, he was still a boy, and I didn't want to ask him that sort of thing. Suddenly, I wanted to call my mom. Not because I thought she would know about the pills, I just missed her. I missed her reflex, even though I knew it was just some sort of trick from my undependable brain. Some stupid vestigial part. The way humans have appendages, even though they're pointless and mainly just a pain in the butt, and people never even think about them unless they have to have them removed. I didn't really want to talk to her, but I picked up my phone and dialed anyway. Of course, I made sure to block the number in case she had caller ID or something. I knew I'd probably hang up, and I just needed to hear her voice. Even if all I got was her saying, "Hello? Who is this?" or breathing. "Hi there," a precocious little voice squeaked. "You are speaking to Chloe Fusawaka, and I have learned how to answer the phone." This was my sister. I hadn't been prepared for that, and for 1 second, I couldn't speak. "Hello? Is anyone there?" "It's Nomi," I managed to say. She giggled. "Nomi? Nomi is a funny name. It sounds like nobody." "Hi, nobody. Do you like to read?" "Yes." "Have you read Goodnight Moon?" "Yes." My mother had read it to me a lot when I was little. "That is my 7th favorite book. It used to be my 5th, but it's too easy now. It's still good. They have your name in it. There's a part where it goes, 'Good night, nobody.' This is my second favorite part of my 7th favorite book. I heard my mom's familiar voice in the background. Is somebody on the phone, Chloe? It's nobody. Then hang up the phone, sweetie. It's time for a bath. I have to go now, Chloe said. Bye-bye, nobody. Call again, okay? Okay. I hung up the phone and felt lonelier than ever. All I wanted to do was sleep, which is what I did for about a week. It was easy to lose track of time.